So Scott, we're standing on some very hallowed ground here.
Well, of course, we're standing here next to the 40-inch refractor. It's the most amazing refractor I've ever seen.
Well, not only that, but you're standing very close to the spot where Einstein stood to have his photograph taken here at the observatory on May 6, 1921.
Well, I'm really honored to be here. You know, now it's almost 95 years after that, right? The telescope now is being used for a regular visual public observing program.
That's correct.
And that's maybe the first time ever, is that right?
Well, there have been intermittent programs for the public over the years, very, very infrequent. Now we have a program that is many nights every month. It's available for public viewing.
Wow, so that's an amazing opportunity, I think, for a lot of people. I can't help but notice that you have all Explore Scientific eyepieces here. You know, I love to see that, but how did you arrive at this decision to get these eyepieces? Because I didn't know that you had selected these.
No, you didn't. And I had done a fairly extensive survey of what was available on the market. When we decided to open the refractor to the public, we had to go through quite a conversion. It had been used photographically with a glass plate camera, film plate camera for many years, decades as a matter of fact. That had to be removed. We had to get a new focuser for the instrument, so along with that came the decision of what kind of eyepieces we were going to use.
I see.
I needed a range of focal lengths, different powers, because depending upon the evening with our seeing here in Wisconsin, we might have great seeing, we might not have such great seeing. So I needed a line, and I wanted to go with one manufacturer where we could switch out depending upon the evening. I also work with a lot of people who have never used a telescope before. So imagine that the very first time they look through a telescope happens to be the great refractor. And we want the great refractor to really perform well.
Sure.
So obviously the telescope is part of this equation, but the eyepiece is absolutely critical. It's paramount to making this a great experience for people.
But this telescope has a ton of focal length. It's like over 19,000 millimeters.
19,357 to be exact.
Okay. You know, these eyepieces, although they're longer focal length for like smaller amateur telescopes, but this is still quite a bit of power to start off with.
Right, and actually the lowest power I use, the 40 millimeter, produces 485 power with this focal length. It's an F19 system. So that's actually the lowest power that I use, and we go up from there.
What kind of objects do you typically look at from here?
Typically on the program, if the moon is visible, we'll start out with that nice bright object, easy for people to focus on because I have to teach them how to focus the telescope. They have to be able to look through the eyepiece, understand what focus is. Then we spend a little time looking at lunar details, and usually moving on to some other solar system object. Hopefully we've got Saturn, Jupiter sometimes, you know, depends upon the time of year, obviously.
I can just imagine the reaction these people have when they look at the instrument.
Spectacular.
Yeah,
yes.
and I got to tell you, I'm really, we're humbled and we're honored that, that these people are looking through our eyepieces, but I think that the experience, no matter what, has just got to be kind of life-changing for some of these people as well.
I think it is, especially when you're doing a public outreach program this extensive with a major instrument like this, and able to tell people about the history of the telescope. That this was Hubble's telescope for earning his PhD in 1917. It was Carl Sagan's telescope for earning his PhD in 1960. It's also the telescope that discovered the spiral structure of the Milky Way galaxy. George Ellery Hale used it in some of his monumental studies observing the sun. So we talk a little bit about that kind of history. We don't dwell on that, because it's an observation program, but we give people a feel for exactly the type of instrument that they're looking through. Very historic, still very noteworthy, very usable, a great instrument that we brought back to life. So again, going back to the eyepieces, it was just extremely important that we have a good range of eyepieces to work with, and they're interchangeable with one of our other observing programs with our 24-inch reflector as well. So they're very versatile. So again, the eyepieces were extremely important to the overall experience for the observer, for the participant in our program, and the line from Explore Scientific was just, let's just put it this way, it was a no-brainer once I looked at all of what was available, and had tested some other brands, especially for power, to see how much power we were actually going to be able to use, because the telescope hadn't been used visually for many, many decades. So there was no one around who could really advise me as to what would work and what wouldn't. So I kind of had to discover that on my own.
Right.
So used other brands that I had available just to see what powers would work, just to give me an idea. Then I wanted to go for a more premium eyepiece, something that I knew was going to give a great experience. Very sharp to the edge on these eyepieces. It's a great field of view. It's easy for people who have not observed in the past to be able to look into the eyepiece and see the object that I'm showing, the Ring Nebula, M13, the Great Globular in Hercules, splitting easily splitting something like Albireo, a stunning object all onto its own, the Wild Duck Cluster, fabulous, sharp to the field, the outer portion of it, pinpoint stars. It's just a great experience. And the performance of each one of the eyepieces that we've purchased has been above expectations. And has been, of course, my visitors don't really know the difference because they haven't looked through a bad eyepiece.
Sure.
They're looking through great eyepieces with a great telescope. So it's all about the presentation of the instrument.
Spoiled.
Well, yeah, they're automatically spoiled. As I have been saying, it's like learning how to drive with a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or something like that, equivalent. Starting out, you're observing, very first celestial observing with the 40-inch refractor. Is a pretty big step for most people to take.
Again, I'm very honored. Our company's very honored to be part of this, and thanks very much.
You're welcome.